Well, in this episode, I'm really excited about it because we're going to be talking about thoughts and feelings. And with me today is Dawn Stemmer. And I met Dawn on my healing journey. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I found her. Dawn has this huge long list of credentials behind her name. So I'm Dawn, before we get started chatting, I'm going to try to help everybody understand the extent of your expertise, your knowledge, your experience. So Dawn is a psychotherapist and she is an integrated behavioral solutions focused for trauma practitioner. She has a long string of accreditations behind her name. She runs her own private therapy clinic, which is called Into Health Wellbeing, and that's based in Merseyside in the northwest of England. She works with brain working recursive therapies, grief relief, and international online calming intervention services. Lots of therapy services, how I'm going to sum that up. And the key thing is that they're all integrated. And this is what I absolutely love about Dawn. So Dawn, I'm really, really happy to have you with me here today talking about thoughts and feelings. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, where I start with everyone is just tell me your story. What led you down this path of working with so many different integrated therapies?
Oh, that's a big question. How long have we got here, Kim? But I'll try and keep it very brief. Where did I start? Well, I only started, believe it or not, in my 50s. So I've done a lot of work since then. However, I think I've always been on a journey to try and find a way that I could feel comfortable. I never felt comfortable growing up at all in my own skin, never mind on the external environment. And I was always passionate about helping people. So I was kind of not a people pleaser, but they were more animals. So my mum used to say if there was anything that was sick in the street, I would bring it home. But I had this really lovely connection with nature, and I loved living in it and being in it as a child. And where I ended up is quite amazing, really, because over the times I grew up, I was aware I'd had lots of problems, educational problems, dyslexia. I couldn't read all right. Even when I left school, I couldn't read all right. And I only kind of really grasped that when I was about 35, after I had my daughter, because I needed to kind of learn quickly to help her. And she's exquisitely clever at reading. But from all of that came all of these internal feelings that I had. I just didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel safe in the world. And eventually that took its toll on my health, because long-term stress, we know, has a really disabling effect on our internal systems, all our systems. But for me, it was what we're talking about here today, a belief and a feeling. And they were predominant throughout my life. And eventually I became so poorly, because I was totally driven to making myself better as I sought to be academically and professionally better. So I strived, I think I pushed myself too hard to try and convince people outside of me that I was okay and that I could do really important things and be successful at them. So that's when everything fell apart for me, is that I got ill. Originally it was a virus, but then that was kind of what I think was, pardon the expression, the key or the nail in the coffin for me, because it took all of my systems out, my thyroid system, my immune system. And at the time, I just had my daughter, and I couldn't afford to be, I had no money, so I couldn't afford to go and we didn't do private therapy then. But I had an amazing doctor, and he helped me immensely work through some of the things that were coming back, flashbacks, trauma from my younger days. And where I got into was a situation where I was going to all these different consultants, different hospitals, different departments, and everyone asked me the same question. And everybody wanted to hear my story. And of course, you repeat it. And in the repeating, I now realized that what I was doing was re-traumatizing myself, because the brain doesn't recognize whether it's a story or it's real. And I came to the conclusion that nothing could be found apart from my autoimmune system having major wobbles, meltdown, thyroid stopped. I got an immune disease that can't be fixed now. So it really disabled me to an extent. And I think they now call it chronic fatigue syndrome. But what predominantly came through was that nothing, and this isn't against the NHS or any medical profession, because I was fully embracing all of it, but I needed to find a solution for me. And it was only when my yoga teacher, when I was in serious pain, and she was trying to do some very gentle work with me in the yoga class, and she just put her finger on my spine, and I was terrified because I didn't trust people. I thought she would hurt me again. And it was the most gentlest touch I could ever have had and received at that time. And instantly, as she put her hand on me, and still, by the way, she was still taking the class as she worked on me on a seat. And my whole body, I could feel, was just kind of doing this really strange thing. I didn't know what it was, but it was like melting into the chair. And that was it. She never asked me a question. She didn't say, is it all right here? Does it hurt there? She just gently went down my spine. And after that, I could honestly say overnight, my pain eased and disappeared, not forever, but there was respite in it. And I was utterly shocked. And the following week, I went back and I went, what did you do to me? Oh my God, what did you do to me? And she said, I didn't do anything. I just did shiatsu. And I'm going to tell you, listeners, a really funny story. This is how probably not educated I was at the time. And I said, but that's a dog. And my sister and my brother have two shiatsus, totally different things. And she went, no, it's shiatsu, as in Chinese traditional medicine, and working on the acupressure points like you would do with acupuncture, but with her attuned fingertips. And the intention was to balance the meridians in the body. I had no concept what she was talking about. Didn't even know I had a body, really. But that sparked that little light that said, that made a difference, and I felt different. And in that journey, I felt little moments of my body feeling comfortable. Quite a while earlier, my father committed suicide, and for whatever reason, we don't know. We could make stories up, but we still don't know. And it traumatized me and my family. And that was just another kind of layer. So all these layers were stacking up. And then when I started to do shiatsu, I thought, oh, I can let these layers go down and get rid of, and I'll be okay. But my brother-in-law got a rare cancer, and it was quite traumatic, you can imagine, for the family. And I was training in this wonderful natural healing medicine. And everybody I heard at the time, and this was going back in 2000, beginning of 2000, said you can't work with cancer patients, you can't touch a cancer patient, you can't massage a cancer patient, you'll spread the cancer around. So I had to sit beside him, not even too frightened to touch his hand. And I had all this wonderful ability now. I was in my second year training as a practitioner, and I'd worked on many clients, and I saw the work that it had done, just like me, and I'd received. So he sadly passed away, and in a terrible, painful state. And I think that was the moment when I decided, if I could learn and qualify, I will go back to college and I will find the skills and the qualifications to make sure that nobody ever leaves this world isolated, fearful, and alone.
That driver, Dawn, that feeling of not wanting people to feel the fearful, full of fear, and being alone.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what's drawn us together, because uh, where what I'm building with the community with Blossom is because when you love someone who has an addiction, so much of life is, for me, became completely living in fear.
Yeah.
Fear of what I would find in the next room, fear of how the day would unfold. And while all of this was happening, as time progressed, feeling more and more alone as we built up these
Yeah.
walls around us to hide what was going
Mm.
on. So, you know, that's what definitely what has brought us together and sparked this conversation
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. And that was really predominantly my drive, as because I was brought up with with alcohol around me, from right off, from the beginning I was born into the family. And my father was a heavy drinker and was very unpredictable. So for a child to be brought up in an unpredictable, chaotic, confusing world, it's not good for development, as we can all now understand. And you've said it really eloquently, and I think that's what caught my attention with you, Kim, is that you never knew how somebody was going to enter the door or the room, or even react in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Because so my whole system, and as I'm sure all my family and my siblings, were on constant alert. So our survival system was always switched on, our nervous system, because we just didn't know what was going to happen and how he would present. And because the way that he did present, sometimes he was playful and happy. And I'm not going to say it was all trauma and tragedy. It was not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it didn't matter to me growing up, because I never knew what to expect when I walked in the house. We used to relish the day, Saturday, because he would go to the races or he would go to the pub, and we had a whole day without him. And I know that sounds really horrifying to some people, but for the family, there was like this. There was like a cloud of calm would come around. And even my mum kind of just managed to settle down, and we'd go to the park and we'd just sit and enjoy each other's company with all the children. And so they were special moments. And I did have them with my father as well. So I can't say he was all bad, he wasn't. But it was the impact of the not knowing what would come. And I never understood. I can now understand that whatever was going on for him, I imagine, I don't know, came from his history. He was in pain, he was suffering. And we've only recently talked to two of my sisters, and we've explored that, about how people hold on to this pain, this feeling, or this belief that nothing can be done, or, or the pain just makes them feel angry, and that is expressed to the very people that they really do love. And so it was a new learning for me the last couple of years to go back and look at it with different eyes, taking out all of the emotional and the stories I'd made up about it, and saw it very clearly for what it was, is that he was poorly and he was sick, and whatever was going on, he was eventually in pain because to do what he did.
So
Yeah,
if we think about ourselves, and we do try to create these stories to sort of try to put some meaning
yeah,
and understanding around what is happening to our loved one, but while we're doing that, we're creating all of these thoughts in our own head,
yeah,
creating these different stories that we tell
mm,
ourselves, which then triggers all of these feelings. And like you talked about the day away from the chaos,
mm,
when I had times like that, I then harbored some guilt because I felt that way. And
mm,
it's just this vicious cycle of all of these thoughts and feelings and so many things that trigger them off.
mm.
And it's now, having met you, I know that we can do something about that, can't we?
Absolutely.
So tell us, Dawn, what can we do so we can change
Okay.
our thinking and our
It's
feelings?
it sounds very complex, and people make it very complex. And training, if I say trained in 20 years, people are going to get, oh, but I'm not a therapist. That's all right for you, but it doesn't matter, because we have a brain, and we all have the same brain, not the same quality. Some are more academic, some are more intellectual, some have more skill and creativity, but it's a brain that does the most amazing thing, and it heals every day. And we make new neurons, wires, every day, and we update our behavior and our thinking every day when we want to. And it gets complex because we bring in all of those stories you've talked about, that I call them scripts. And it's natural as children, we make those stories up to fit into a world that, whether you're in a family of chaos, or in an environment of chaos or worry, children make up fairy tales in their head. So, invisible friends, and, my friend and I am going for a walk, and that's how children develop. So we make these stories up, and then eventually we believe them. And it gets complex, because when other people tell us things about ourselves, how we are, who we are, our identity, pointing fingers and, you're silly, or you're clever, or you're a princess, or you're stupid. If it's said long enough, we take that on and we make it our own. So we then own that belief. What can we do? Well, for me, it's taken me a long time to get back to this point, Kim, as you know. I realised that it's just 3 simple things. First of all, it's 3 simple questions. And one of the questions we all get wrong, or I believe, so I'm going to own it. I found that when I switched these really important questions around and took away the why and flipped in the what, and I only learned this last couple of years, and this is what's totally transformed my feelings now, is that the what gives the brain the ability to go and find a solution. Because we've all got solutions. Whether you're qualified in them or not is irrelevant, because the brain will say to you, you either know a thing or you don't know a thing. And if you don't know a thing, then you say, so what can I do in this moment? What step can I take to make myself feel better, or be safe? And the brain will then start to work on the process of moving you forward, not leaving you stuck, frozen in a place that you can't work out. Because for me, and a lot of my clients here, so I can only say my clients, they used to come in and say, why? Why do I feel this way? Why do I have this pain? Why? And it was only when I started to explore that for myself. I'd done mindful practice for a long time for trauma, not the kind of deep meditative stuff. And I realised, I thought, hold on a minute. I met Tony Robbins, and this is where we met. And I thought, he's mentioned this, where your focus goes, your energy flows. And I thought, but my energy is not flowing. It's still stuck in this feeling, this sensation in my body. And when I started to explore with a therapist, I have to say, I'm not going to own it all on my own. They helped me go right back to the very core thing that kept me stuck. And it was the core emotion that I'd locked in. And we talked about this earlier with you in private, that our bodies and our brain decide, or our brain decides, that there are certain things that it will keep us safe from. And whether that's right or wrong, it doesn't matter to the brain. The brain will keep us in a place where it believes, as it doesn't have ears or eyes or sound, is the right place to stay. And if that means being locked in a place of discomfort to stop me going out in the world and meeting other people, because people are not safe and they can't be trusted, that's my script. And if I get friendly and close to people, they will hurt me. And they do, because that's what people do, but not deliberately, I don't think. So maybe. So there was this cycle of my thoughts and my feelings were running the show. And when I looked at the what was happening, I realized it was my 3-year-old child, as I call her, my part, running the show. So that 3-year-old was still there, and she was scared. And that was the feeling, because up to the age of a particular time, and I knew it was there through transactional analysis, so brain development in children. And children up to about 18 months to 3 don't have the capacity to analyse like we do as adults. They can only feel. So when we get a feeling, I think it's that part of me that's learned in the tissue how to respond to danger. So my body was always responding to danger. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. So with where we are today as adults,
Yes. Yeah.
what do we do as adults to, what, going back to that question is what comes first, thoughts or feelings? And what can we do about those thoughts and feelings to change what we're thinking and what we're feeling? That's the
Well,
magic thing that everyone's looking
it
at. We
is.
want to feel happy. We want to experience joy. And we
Do.
want to let go of the pain and the guilt and the shame that has been this big, heavy blanket
Yeah.
of our lives. I want to lift it off.
Wow.
What do we do, Dawn?
What do we do? Well, I'd love to do a little practice with you if you're happy.
Yes, absolutely.
And demonstrate. And I'm going to stop looking at my camera because I want to look at you here on the screen. So your audience and listeners looking, please excuse me. I'm going to just focus my attention on Kip. And basically, first things, 3 important things, is to notice. So become aware that something is going on in our body. So we have to listen to the symptoms. Does that make sense? So we have a sensation in the body.
Yeah.
And that sensation is the brain saying to us, take notice, there's something going on, and you need to listen and then take action. Because the brain can't do it, but we can as in the conscious state. So the 3 steps: become aware, become open to what is happening and what you're feeling in the body. And then pause around and just say, be curious, go, oh, what's happening? Now, that question on its right, in its own, is huge because it means that you're paying attention to the feeling. But if I catch the thought and I listened as an observer, not getting caught up in the story of what I might think is happening, but stay grounded in my feeling and the present. And when I mean feeling, I can just put my hand on a cold table, and that breaks my state and brings me right back into reality as grounding. And I can then kind of use that to calm my mind, because feelings will only last for a few seconds, they pass. But in that moment of being triggered, and we never know where those triggers are coming from that make those feelings, then what we have to do is pay attention to them and then look around. So the very quick thing what you can do is that take notice of your feelings or even your thoughts, because the one will follow the other. But for me, it's always the feeling. And if I feel my breath getting a little shallow, and if I notice I don't even do it here. When your breath gets shallow, your chest comes in and your jaw gets tight. And then what happens is your shoulders start to come forward. And what we're doing physically, the brain thinks we're in an attack and we want to curl up. So we get really smaller and smaller. And that was my release, because I realized, I've got to change my posture. It doesn't matter what my brain thinks. In the reality of the moment, when I touch the table and I look around and there's nothing going to happen to me, I do 2 things. I put my hand here to acknowledge A part of me is feeling a bit nervous. That's okay. But it's false alarm if nobody's hurting me. And I put my hand either on a surface that I can physically feel in this moment. And that's usually my go-to. I put my hand here and I put something on a cold handle, a rail, a door, anything that you can hold the object. And that breaks the cycle of the false alarm and the false thoughts and emotions.
Can we go through it a little bit slowly? Because you've said there's 3 things that we do. So,
There is.
okay, so the first thing is when we notice a feeling or a thought.
A feeling or a thought. And the way I teach my clients is don't go into the negative. So this isn't to be done when you're in the flight, fight,
Yeah.
you're having a panic attack. It will be brilliant later on because you can use it. But at the beginning, we always say, start with a pleasant sensation. So it may be that you've got your feet on the floor. So let's do that together. So kind of wherever you are, you can do this standing, sitting. If you're lying, use your heels. You can keep your eyes open, so it's great. You can do it outside. So just basically, let's go through. So all I'm going to invite you to do is just become aware, first of all, of your whole body. Mm-hmm. And your whole body means everything without getting caught up. Just the shape, maybe the weight. Just kind of, that's what I call a broad beam. So everything in my environment, my body and around. So temperature, sound. And the brain, you'll want to go and pick one thing, but just notice what's around. And then just gather that all up with your attention. And then go for a journey down to your, let's make it specific. Yeah, go for a journey down your body, straight down, and place your awareness on your right foot and the big toe on your right foot. So that's very specific. And just notice what you notice and what you sense and feel. And you don't have to do anything. There's no right and there's no wrong way. So you can't get it wrong. You're just noticing your big toe. And you might notice there's a sensation. There might be an ache or a pain. There might be a bit of warmth and space, moisture. All you're doing is just noticing what you're noticing, what you're sensing in that moment in your right big toe. And you might actually, like I was at the beginning, don't notice anything at all. And you might not even know you've got a big right toe. And that gets all sorts of things going on. So, but notice, are you being critical? Are you thinking about how silly it is? Or this is stupid? Or I don't know about anything about my big toe? They're all the things that we observe as we're noticing the sensation in our right big toe. So that's the kind of cycle. So pay attention, just notice what you notice. And you might even notice the shape, and you may even be able to kind of imagine with your mind's eye, just going around the edge of your big toe, or perhaps taking in the whole foot if that feels better. So like chasing your shoe with your own, just with your mind's attention around your foot. So now you're taking in the whole foot and what's there. And that's all we're doing. And what we're going to do is very quickly, because the mind will get fed up with that, broaden out. We just take in, get on with our day. So that's a very quick, easy practice to do that you can do wherever you are, cooking, cleaning, washing, having a shower. Notice the water, what in this moment, what does the water feel? Maybe using your thumb and in the shower and just go for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. I'm just going to pay attention to the sensation in my thumb. So what is it like to put soap on my thumb? I don't know if you can see that here. And all I'm going to do is just rub and pay attention to my thumb. Does that make sense? Yeah. And in those little, what I call micro calming moments, we're actually breaking the state of our mind from getting caught up in all the other automatic thinking that we don't really pay attention to. So that's the first thing you can do. Sorry, that's the second thing you can do. So the first thing is you have to notice that you're having, and only when you notice, don't go looking for stuff. But if you're having a nice warm cup of coffee, my favorite thing, and let me get you a cup and I can demonstrate. So you have your cup and you can hold it. I don't know if you can see it. So you hold your cup and it's cool, my cup. So I can pay attention to the sensation of what it's like to be cool in my hands. And I can kind of think, oh, the weight. And if it's a glass, you'll kind of get a sense of the movement of the liquid. So you're really kind of layering your awareness up to pay attention to the present moment. It's only this moment we've got to pay attention to this cup. And I can guarantee you'll have never experienced a cup in this moment like you will experience when if you pick it up and pay attention to it. And then you might be able to layer that up with a pleasant aroma. So you breathe in the aroma. So you move that cycle from feeling, sensing, temperature, weight, smell, and you might even hear the sound of the liquid swishing around or something around you. But when we keep flipping from and to, we're soothing our whole nervous system and our mind, and we're pausing around, getting little micro boosts of energy. So we kind of rest our brain a bit. The intention eventually is to build them up into little bite-sized pieces. And as you know, I've got a new thing that's called BiiTS, and you take the bits and you put them together and weave them together like a little string of pearls in your bag. Sorry, gentlemen, if they're listening, but you gather these little pearls of attention in your day. And if we pay long enough attention, about 12 seconds to the sensation of what we're doing, paying attention to and noticing with real open awareness, then at the end of the day, what we gather is a whole bunch of pearls of really nice, pleasant, neutral memories and feelings and sensations, rather than going to bed, this was me, with lots of the negative beliefs. They didn't like me. I had a terrible day. I'm not good. I'm not clever. They're the things that run on in the background that cause really the most distressing feelings in us all. So that's that kind of second.
So I guess what I'm understanding, because this is new to me. So
Yeah.
sometimes when things are new, it's hard to grasp and understand. So instead of carrying on through my day with all those thoughts and feelings that show up, and I just rush through my day with pulling those things along with me, the way to change those thoughts and feelings so that they're more positive and more in line with what I want in life is to notice them.
Yes.
And when I notice them, to run through that little exercise. And so the exercise of being this is the thing. If it was a little bit easier steps, I think it might be easier for me to understand. So to notice something that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And oh, what is this feeling?
Yes.
What is this feeling? And just sit with it and feel it.
Yes.
And then to ground myself in reality. And that's it.
That's it.
That's what we do. So it's as simple as that.
As simple as that.
And okay, so and then by doing that throughout the day at different moments, it means that we're starting to ground ourselves in the moment.
Yeah.
By becoming aware of things instead of just letting it run.
Yes, automatically,
where we have no control. It's controlling
absolutely.
us. Is
And
that
the aim, that's it. You've got it perfectly.
Okay.
And it is basically that what we're doing is breaking the cycle of the automatic thoughts that we don't pay attention to but drive the emotion.
Yeah, and we don't know they're there, do we?
The majority of the time we don't. Sometimes we do. So, we can be aware of our own internal dialogue. So what's the narrative? So it can be quite critical.
Yeah.
So, but the intention, yes.
It's
Yes,
me pointing myself saying, yeah, yeah, my critical self-dialogue.
we everyone that I know, and I can only talk for my clients, is that when we use our own internal dialogue to be critical about ourselves, it's the most vicious critical voice we give ourselves that we would never express out to a friend or even somebody we didn't like. We wouldn't use that dialogue outside of our own internal realm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the intention is that we don't go looking for it. But when we become aware of a feeling, a sensation in our body, the intention is to just, oh, there's a feeling. And we can say, what is it as well? Oh, what's that feeling? But that would then lead you open to go and find out what it is: sadness, happy, joy, pleasant, neutral. The intention is, I've got a feeling, full stop. I'm aware in this moment. I've got a feeling. And then without going into a story or labeling it, that's the
Yeah.
important bit.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
just go, in this moment, there's a feeling.
So it's just literally observing that there's a feeling there
That's
and
it. Just
grounding yourself in the moment so you don't get swept away with the feeling.
absolutely. Because your brain will want to go and take you, oh, it's a pain, it's an ache, it's an itch, it's kind of like a tickle, whatever, it will always give you the answer. But if you can just go, I've got a feeling, I'm noticing this moment, I've got a sensation in my body, or I've got a sensation in my hand, or I've got a feeling in my toe, then what happens is you don't get the brain to go off and start telling you all about the big pain in your toe and then it's got a whole story around it, and then it'll take you way off into like automatic thinking and storytelling.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you just, in that process, is when you can do that and you notice it. And you just go, I've got a feeling. And then just notice your foot on the floor and pay attention, because that's the bit that breaks the cycle between the negative and the positive. So you're just pacing, I'm in this moment. I've got a feeling. So it's my hand. So I'm going to have to go in my hand. I've got a sensation in my hand. Sensation. I pay attention to the sensation. I observe the sensation. So it's like observing the body in the body, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not going to get caught up in what it is. I'm not going to name it as pain or ache or itch.
Now, for someone like me that feels the old me would say that that's just too slow. That's not enough. I need to understand more now, 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 now. I'm not just going to pause and think about, I have a feeling. So how do we get, what do we do to get from that place where we want all those answers now and we want to just change something now to becoming that person who just is able to just, as you say, observe and recognize that I'm having that sensation or I'm having that feeling.
Okay.
And just ground myself and leave it at that.
Yeah. No, that's great. Those are your little pearls. So that exercise is kind of gathering your little pearls. And if you keep it to a neutral, or I always like to start off, because it's very easy, but brains make it complex. We make it complex as humans. And if you keep it to a pleasant sensation, so warm shower, brushing your teeth, cup of coffee, nice cake, can you bite a cake and just absorb, hold it in your mouth and taste it? So they're the kind of little pearls that you're going to collect, that you can go back at the night time and go, oh, I remember that gorgeous cake and coffee, and and all of those nice pleasant feelings come back. So you hold that.
Thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
Really, really important, Dawn, because you helped me understand that, and I'm actually picturing putting a little pearl in my bag, something beautiful, because I always try to look for beautiful things or joyful things. So for me, I'm a visual person. So I've always thought about what I can see in my day. And I've never thought about pausing more often and noticing the feelings that I'm having and collecting those lovely feelings like a little
Yeah,
pearl that I can then string together at the end of the day.
absolutely.
Because your day is going to just feel so much better
Yeah,
if you do that.
it is. It is. And I call them my string of pearls. I mean, I've done mindful practice for a long time for clinical practitioners to work in with trauma and palliative care. So we needed to have those very quick skills and techniques, and then offer them to the people we were working with who were in trauma, because what we wanted to do is to help them to really reground themselves quickly back in the present moment, because for a lot of them, they're having treatment, and some of it was very scary treatment. So my role then was we had to kind of experience it. So it took me 3 years to do the training in that, what we call mindful resilience enhancement. I was using my practice, my experience, and offering it. And this is why I'm offering it here. It isn't a secret thing. It's not even magical. We have the capacity. Our brains do it all the time. And I can guarantee if I see a pair of red shoes in a shop window, my attention will be zoomed right in, and all I can see is a pair of red shoes.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference with this is that you then start to decide where you're going to pay your attention, not the other way around. So your brain's not running you. You're training the bits of your brain to say, I run the show, I'm in charge of the vehicle, and I choose to focus just for this moment in time, 5 seconds, the sensation of my big toe. And eventually what happens, it's like taking your brain to the gym. So you build up that resilience, and over time, you have then the capacity to notice, observe, and choose the response that you want. So it's all about choicefulness, really.
Okay, no, that's making a lot of sense now. So the practice of just choosing a pleasant sensation is a way of developing that skill, so
Yes,
that when the moment arises where your brain takes you back to a memory which is unpleasant,
absolutely.
sad, or because we do have a lot of those memories,
Mm.
you're able to ground yourself and pull
Yes,
yourself out of it
yeah,
positive state.
yeah.
Am I understanding right?
You are absolutely really
Okay,
quickly, of
that
course, it
makes sense.
good. But it's not about trying to change the experience, because we can't change the experience or
Yes.
the thought or the feeling. So if you find that you've been taken back to an uncomfortable memory or a feeling or a sensation, what I say with my clients anyway is don't go there, leave it alone, just get on with your day. And when you've settled down a little bit and you're not so much in the memory or the distressful memory or the feeling, then find, when you're having a cup of coffee, just go, what does this coffee feel like? What does it smell
Yeah.
like? Cup of tea, nice hot bowl of soup. And it's in those moments you build up the resilience. So you don't want to go into how can I explain that? Yeah, you don't want to go running a marathon. You're not an athlete, so your brain hasn't got the capacity yet to hold that state while your body has been fired up into a really uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
So if you imagine the Olympics that are on at the minute, they've taken like years and years. We don't have to take years, but you don't want to go right into doing going for the gold medal when you're only just starting off on the track of, being an athlete.
Yeah.
So keep it simple, keep it
Mm-hmm.
easy. If it's not easy and effortless, let it go and come back in a moment or two and do it again when you find a neutral or a present sensation, and just focus for, I usually say 3 cycles of breath. So, in, out, whatever your breath is, don't change your breath state. Don't be doing the big yoga breaths, meditation breaths, because you're not practiced to do that either, and the brain will just think something else is going on. So just notice in a pleasant way, and then just take your attention down. And I'm going to invite people to start off, if they've never done it before, with a foot they can choose, and just notice that, because the two things that are totally taking the mind away from and breaking the cycle of the feeling, the thought, a really horrible feeling, a really horrible thought. So, the cognitive spike that we get And before we know, we're 2 or 3 hours later and we're in a really uncomfortable place. So that's the aim, to build up enough resilience so that you don't get caught up in your negative spiral feelings and stories.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you for that, Dawn.
My
So the
pleasure.
one thing that everyone can take away is that you can do something simple to
Yes.
break that spiral
Yeah.
of the negative thoughts and feelings. And we can start by, taking something pleasant and just observing how it feels
Absolutely.
and collect those moments throughout the day,
Yeah.
training our brain to do that.
Absolutely.
And we
Because the
can
brain
start.
doesn't know. Absolutely. The brain is locked up in a little black box. It doesn't have sound, sight, smell. So the only information it can have is what we give it and what we decide to choose and focus our attention on. So if we're focusing on a nice memory, even, so if you had a nice moment last week and you recall that nice, pleasant moment, so you might be with a friend having a lovely chat and it felt really comfortable, then recall that, because the brain will think just the same and respond just the same as though you were there. So it doesn't know the difference. So whatever you feed it is whatever the feeling you're going to get. So these are just little moments that you can start building up. So you've got something nice at the end of the night rather than a whole load of other
The
stuff.
spiral of the other stuff. Okay, that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Dawn. I always end every episode with gratitude. I'm very grateful that you were able to be with me here today to share this. What's something that you are grateful for, Dawn?
Oh, so many things. I think I'm just grateful that I've, at this moment, been able to offer really a part of me to the group, to the people, and to say, there is another way. So I'm grateful for my abilities and my passion to drive me forward and learn things so I can pass them back on to other people so they can feel better too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Dawn. It's been
My
a pleasure.
pleasure. Take care.